So I was part of the crew of this social justice play. Kind of, a little bit. I guess this title of the video is kind of misleading, but I'm going to tell the story anyway, just because I think it's actually kind of an interesting story. And I have been thinking a lot about my old work in music and theater, which there really was a lot of. Granted, I was almost never really getting paid a whole bunch, but, hey, non-paid work is still work, believe it or not. And one of the things I did was immediately after college, I worked as the sound designer and operator for my friend. I don't want to say his name. This guy who was in my advanced playwriting class, he wrote and produced and directed a play himself immediately after college. He was actually a very, very smart, talented guy. He was black and he was from the south side of Chicago. And he wrote a play basically about the neighborhood that he's from, and it was destructive and how it's basically like a trap or something, and the good character was this female and she was supposed to get out of the place, and then the protagonist of it ended up burning down the neighborhood at the end of the play. It's actually kind of hard to identify what were the themes, and in a lot of ways, knowing that Chicago is very much a Democrat-run city, there's a massive amount of probably like social welfare and everything, we can safely assume. Maybe the message was actually kind of a anti-Marxist, pro-capitalist thing. Ultimately, he might not have even intended it to be that. Honestly, knowing the guy, it probably was just his own visceral emotions about his neighborhood. He probably just felt like going back and burning the whole place down. And instead of actually doing that, he wrote a play about somebody who did. He was a really cool guy. I mean, he was my good friend by the end of it. And we always liked each other in playwriting class because we were some of the only people that were serious writers and were any good. And we respected each other, because that's what it's like, like if you work hard and you really care about something, you notice that most people who are doing that thing don't really care so much as you. So we cared about each other's artistic work. And so after script writing class was out, at the end of that year, over the summer, I somehow talked to him and he said, hey, I'm going to produce my play into a Fringe Festival play. Fringe Festival is this thing that happens in most theater cities where you can produce a play in the Fringe Festival and you have to do everything. It's not like they produce it for you, but I think that they will help you find a venue and then they will list your play in this big listing thing. And so you can get some free advertisement, and a lot of people go to these plays because they take a look at it. And so it's a good way for a young, fresh playwright to get their work across. So he did that, and he asked me, hey, you do audio production stuff, would you do sound design? And I was like, sure, yeah, absolutely, sure. And this is one of a few times that I actually started to really understand the New York City theater scene, was just going through this process. And spoilers, it was a nightmare in general. Not working with him, but pretty much everything else about it, as I will explain. So the first thing to keep in mind is that I wasn't there for the auditions, and I probably should have been. I ended up being consulted a lot about the play and what I thought of it and what he should do with the actors. Like, he needed a second or third opinion. Usually I was kind of the third opinion. A friend of ours was this girl, and she usually was the second opinion. But other than that, he didn't have anyone to consult with. And, it's hard to get feedback from actors, obviously. So I was the third opinion, and ultimately, once I started being more involved in the production, he realized that he really valued my opinions. And so he was asking me a lot more questions. And but I didn't actually go to the auditions, and he got the guy that ended up playing the main role. And the guy, honestly, the main role represented my friend. Like, he wrote himself into the play pretty much, very, very much. It was basically just a version of himself in an alternate universe, right? And the guy that he cast, it's really funny. The guy that he cast was really, really good looking, but he wasn't a good actor. He was hot. He was this like sexy black guy, but he wasn't a good actor, really. But they said that he auditioned well. So then we were having, so the cast of the whole cast of the whole play was black. Everybody in the play was black. My friend was black. The only other white person on the whole set at all was my friend that was the girl who was the stage manager. And she was kind of like, you know, she did all of the boring organizing stuff. It's not that both of them didn't really work hard, but being a stage manager is like the worst position. So I ended up around these people that were already having a bit of a drama because the guy who was the head actor, the lead actor, he was kind of a diva. And he was heterosexual, but he really kind of thought he was all that. And he would flip out and he would be like, I don't know, I'm not feeling this, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, act like you are. You're an actor, you know? And so there was already that drama going on with him by the time I even really started showing up to rehearsals regularly. And then as time went on, it just became this really strange experience. For example, there was a publicist that my friend had. My friend worked with this woman who was this young woman, probably in her mid to late 20s, who was Asian and seemed like a total rich girl. And she probably had just graduated from some program in PR. She was a PR person. She was supposed to be his publicist. And she was supposed to try to like find him a production. He was supposed to meet a theater producer that wanted to host his play through her. Except I don't think that she really knew that many theater people, because he had this party for the play that, you know, I went to, and I remember, like, it had free alcohol. That was the thing. And then I remember trying to look around and figure out who these people were, and I'm pretty sure everybody at that party was mostly just like friends of hers and friends of theirs. And I think that my friend was pretty mad. I think I remember a moment, like I was drinking a drink and he was like, man, I could not believe all these people are drinking my alcohol. And I'm like, oh yeah. He's like, yeah, because I'm paying for this whole thing. I mean, there's going to be a bill at the end of this and I am paying for it. This is my PR agent that she organized this. And I'm like, oh, should I not drink so much? And he's like, no, you can. You're the, the help. You're working on this play. And I'm certainly not paying, he certainly was not paying me a whole bunch. But he was not happy with the turnout of the event that he was ultimately paying for, because it was organized by this rich girl who just kind of like invited a bunch of yuppie young people who were just going to show up because it was fun. So that part was kind of a nightmare. And she was very big on she was convinced that it was going to be easy to find him production and that she could just market him because he was this young, hip, really smart black guy. And it just seemed like she didn't actually think that much about how hard it is to get a play produced in New York City. Because it's really not easy. There's a lot of theater, a lot of it is bad, and it's mostly politics that gets a play produced. Now, granted, it's a lot easier if you're a racial minority or a woman, and I have a whole other story that I could tell sometime about the whole system of producing female directors and stuff, because that is way easier than, other things. But ultimately, I think that this woman just didn't really understand, and she wasn't putting that much effort. And she did this other really weird thing where apparently she wanted him to go out to dinner, and he was going to have to pay for this dinner himself. And she wanted to go out to a nice dinner to celebrate the production. And he was like, aren't I going to have to pay for it? And she was really insistent upon it. And he like didn't want to go on it because he didn't want to waste his money. And that, so he had to deal with that. And I don't know, it's almost like she was tokenizing him for his identity, or maybe she was just a crappy publicist. I don't really know. I don't want to say too much. I don't want to assign too much to her, but she was, screw that girl. Anyhow, the next thing to keep in mind was that as the progression of the play went on, there was kind of like more and more drama, and I wasn't privy to a lot of this. I didn't really know what was going on, but my friend, the girl who was the stage manager, she was actually sleeping with the director guy, the writer-director, and I didn't know that. I kind of did. Like, I went over this one time and we were drinking, and then he had his pants off and he was in her bed, like he was in his boxer shorts. And, but I just didn't care. Like, I'm like, I don't care if you guys have sex, like, whatever. So I wasn't like trying to be all gossipy about it. And then there was some stuff going on with the cast, and I had kind of heard about it, I think. But on one of the nights that the play was actually being performed, there was probably like 3 or 4, maybe even only 2 actual performances of the play, because that's what fringe festivals are like. You get together a whole production, and then you, almost as soon as it's started, it's over. And we were in the play, and there's this moment where there's like a fake slap between the female love interest and the main character, or something like that, right? Like where she pretends to slap him. Well, this actually happened. The girl, this one night, she just full on attacked the dude. She was like swinging her hands at him and kicking him, and she just like went after him and like pushed him all the way across the stage. Like he had to back up, like, whoa, you trying to hurt me? And it was my friend and I, the stage manager, we looked at each other and we were like, what just happened? Oh, but we're in the booth, right? Like I'm running sound and she's probably running the lights. And we just were like looking at each other dumbfounded. Like we had no idea what had actually just happened. And it turned out, and the funny thing also was that the audience just acted like it was normal. Like they didn't go or anything, because they didn't know that it was not supposed to be in the play. So then it turned out that the female and the male, the lead female and the lead male, had actually started dating or something, but he was like hitting her sometimes. And that unfolded, and then I think he was trying to date one of the other girls or something, and it turned into this big drama fest. And oh god, what else happened? He ended up somehow getting confronted by the director, and then he was saying he was going to fight the director, and he left this long crazy message for like 10 minutes yelling at my friend who was the girl, when he's like, I don't want y'all to think I'm like y'all acting like I'm some bad dude or something. I'm not some bad dude, but blah, 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 blah. Like, but he went on and on for like 10 minutes. And it was this really, really crazy thing. And I don't know. I was underpaid. I don't know if my friend's play ended up being produced. I think that his publicist just sort of got his money and, added it to her resume. And maybe that was that. I'm not so much telling this story because it's an experience with social justice stuff. Now, granted, it was supposed to be sort of marketed as a social justice play, but ultimately, I don't think it really was. I don't think it had really many themes of social justice, social justice being rebranded Marxism. But I want people to know that there's a reason that I didn't end up staying in theater. Even though I was doing it sometimes off and on for a long, long time, it's not so much that I quote unquote failed or something. There was just this long series of experiences that made me realize that the whole scene is just totally messed up and that I didn't want to have much of anything to do with it. And that this is just one of many stories. Like, I have this story about females getting their work produced in New York, and I should probably tell that at some point because that's an interesting story. But there's also a whole bunch of stories that I have from the San Francisco Bay Area that, oh man, the San Francisco Bay, if you think it's bad in New York in terms of this like social justice theater stuff, no. There's an actual theater scene in New York. You can actually get a play produced and make some amount of profit in New York. You can't in San Francisco. You have to get grants, and the grants come from political ideologues, and they don't want anybody who's like actually talented. It's all identity politics mostly, and if you are a white male or even probably a white female, you have to be like a sex worker, and it has to be like a sex worker arts festival thing, or it has to be like ridiculously pretentious to the point where it's basically non-art and nobody actually wants to watch it. And I believe that the reason why is because they want to discourage meritocracy. They want to discourage people who are actually good at the arts. Because honestly, far leftists, Marxist type people hate good artists. They loathe it. They hate people that are good at anything, especially if it's a white male. Now, they're more than happy to amplify the voices of trans people and black lesbians in wheelchairs, sure, if hopefully it will look like there's an even amount of those people making good theater or music or something as there are with white males. But if you're a white male, they will maybe put you on a pedestal if you're willing to be totally degrading towards yourself. If you're going to go up there and if you're going to go up there and embarrass yourself, maybe they'll give you a shot. Well, my friend was a black guy in New York, and he was actually really good, wrote a really good play, and he still went through a really awful experience. So it was really easy for me to start to realize that that whole world is totally messed up. And I don't know, I guess hopefully crowdfunding is the future. Hopefully people learn to start paying YouTubers and stuff that they want to watch so that they can keep making videos, because otherwise you're going to get, even Jordan Peterson he's starting to, I have always been a little bit skeptical of him, just in the way that it was like, why does he say that he's a Christian? Because he doesn't really explain it. And he debated Sam Harris, and I didn't really see the explanation particularly well. It seemed very two-faced. And now he said the thing about how Kavanaugh should resign or something. And it's always like, there's so many people that will disappoint you once they get mainstream attention. And therefore, people have to remember to pay their smaller channels. Because, once somebody gets big enough, they can get paid off. And I don't know if that happened to Peterson. I'm definitely not going to say that. But I'm very suspicious of everyone and everything because I'm Prince of Queens, Prince of Conspiracy Theories. That's all.